Hello and welcome to the webinar. I'm Malia Dicker, Director of Marketing and Communications for the Woodward-Hines Education Foundation and the Get to College program. We are recording today's webinar and we'll send a link to anyone who registered. For those watching the recording, today's date is December 8th, 2017, and the material in this webinar is current through the 2018-19 school year. In today's session, How to Send Your Students to College Tuition Free, you'll learn about the HELP grant, which covers full tuition and fees at any Mississippi public college, and how to identify and prepare your students to apply for it. This webinar is targeted to high school counselors. We'll actually be launching a campaign here at Get to College in January to target HELP eligible students, and if you counselors are interested in participating, please email us at communications@gettocollege.org. With me today is Get to College Assistant Director and College Counselor Brandy Lindell, and Gulfport High School Counselor Cecilia Zahidi, who is also on the Get to College Advisory Board, and whose school has the highest number of HELP recipients in the state. Before I go over housekeeping details of the webinar, I will ask them to introduce themselves. So go ahead, Brandy.
Hi, I'm Brandy Lindell. I work at the Gulf Coast Get to College Center in Ocean Springs. I started my career in college admissions at a small liberal arts selective college out of state. And for the last 7 years, I've been at Get to College, helping students and families here at the Mississippi Gulf Coast and also statewide Get to College. I currently am the chair of the Mississippi State Council for ACT, so that helps me be very attentive to the requirements for the HELP grant and other scholarships for students.
I'm Cecilia Zahidi, and I'm a counselor at Gulfport High School, where I have worked for 21 years. I started as an art teacher there and then transitioned into counseling, which I love.
Great. Thank you, guys. Well, I will share a little background on Get to College and a few logistics about the webinar before we get started. Get to College is a nonprofit program of the Woodward-Hines Education Foundation, and we have 3 centers around Mississippi in Jackson, Ocean Springs, and South Haven, and we help parents, students, and high school counselors with all aspects of college planning and financial aid. All of our services are free. So in our centers, we offer personalized college counseling appointments where we can tell you how to apply for admission and scholarships, help you fill out your FAFSA, and advise you on things like essay writing and interviewing. And we also offer virtual services in case you don't live near one of our centers that include two-way text messaging and webinar series, also remote FAFSA completion. So during this webinar, we can't see or hear you, but you can ask us questions through instant message at any time. Just click the Q&A button in the upper left corner of your screen to open the chat window. And Kimberly Trosclair, the director of the Get to College Gulf Coast Center, will be replying to Q&A today. So the presenters will also answer questions live at the end of the webinar, but you can feel free to chat those questions at any time. And please don't be shy, it's a great opportunity to ask questions. Great, so I'm going to turn off my video and turn it over to Brandy to get started.
Thank you, Malia. I'm going to share my screen with the attendees so that you can follow along with our PowerPoint about the HELP grant. Before we discuss the HELP grant, however, it's important for you to know that the state legislature will fund 3 different grants this year, and we're going to talk a little bit about all 3 of them, but of course our focus is going to be on the HELP grant. The first of the 3 is MTAG, MESG, and the HELP grant. MTAG stands for Mississippi Tuition Assistance Grant. MESG is Mississippi Eminent Scholars Grant. The HELP grant is for Higher Education Legislative Plan. Now, it is important for us to realize that there are requirements for all 3 grants. So for MTAG, a student to receive MTAG, they have to have a 15 on the ACT, 2.5 GPA. To receive MESG, the student has to have a 29 on the ACT and a 3.5. Now, the amounts do differ. For MESG, the student would receive $2,500 a year, and for MTAG, the student would receive $500 a year freshman and sophomore years in college, and then if they transfer to a 4-year college, it would go up to $1,000 their junior and senior year. the two grants, MTAG and MESG, are not need-based. Now, for the HELP grant, which is where we're going to spend most of our time today speaking about, you have to have 4 different requirements to receive the grant. A 20 on the ACT, 2.5 GPA, and you have to have a certain list of classes in high school. We do have a list of those that we have on our website. You will also be directed to a website for the state financial aid office that also has a list of the curriculum so that you can make sure that your students are taking the right classes. The classes listed need to be completed by the time the student graduates high school. The HELP grant is need-based. That means that it is based on financial need. And if a student has all of these requirements by the deadline of March 31st, they will need to apply online by that deadline. I mentioned that the HELP grant is need-based. That means that there are income limits, and it is based on the household's adjusted gross income. So if you're thinking about your tax return, the adjusted gross income is listed all the way at the bottom of your 2016 tax return. We feel like the legislature will fund the HELP grant this year at a minimum of $39,500. That means that a student's household adjusted gross income, parents and the student's income included, needs to be $39,500 or less. Now, if there are additional dependents in the household under the age of 21, you would add $5,000 for each additional child. So, for example, if the student lives in the household with mom and it is only the mom and the student in the household, then the mom and student's adjusted gross income would have to be $39,500 or less. If the student also has a sibling living in the household with mom, you would add $5,000 to that income limit. And that would mean that the household adjusted gross income for the student and the parent would have to be $44,500 or less. Now, just because a student applies for the HELP grant, and frankly, all of the other grants in Mississippi, because there's only one application for all 3 grants, if they make the application deadline of March 31st, there are a few more steps that he or she has to complete. Just applying does not allow the student to receive the grant. Once a student submits the application, they, within a week or so, will receive an email with a 4-digit PIN, personal identification number. This will be given to the student from Mississippi Financial Aid, and the student would use that PIN to log in to the state system to check their status. The email will also tell the student that he or she is missing documents. This is not anything to be alarmed about, but I'm sure as counselors you have had students come into your office and say, I received this email and I'm missing documents, but I've already completed the application. Every student who applies for state financial aid will receive a PIN number and will have missing document emails received. The student simply uses the PIN number, logs into the application, and the student can see what documents they're missing and what documents have been received. So it is just part of the process in applying for the grant. The absolute deadline for all documents received to the state office is April 30th. So the student would need to have a 20 on the ACT, a 2.5, the classes completed by the time they're graduating, and the need-based income limit, which would be determined by filing the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. All of those items, plus any other documents the state requests, need to be submitted by April 30th. On that email, the state also tells you how you can submit the documents. They allow you to fax, email, and mail any of the documents. So they make it very easy for you to submit the documents for your grant eligibility. Two things that are important for students to realize when they are applying for state grant is that they must enroll in at least 15 hours in college to keep state grant, whether that be MTAG, MESG, or the HELP grant. The students must enroll in 15 hours each semester, and they must complete 15 hours each semester. The unfortunate part of that is students cannot use remedial classes as part of the 15 hours. So it's very important to speak with students about registration and applying and advising during the sign up for classes at the colleges, so that they make sure that they have enough hours to keep the HELP grant. In addition to that, the state checks the student's transcript after each semester. So it's important that not only the first semester do students sign up for 15 hours, but they continue to be successful each semester to keep the HELP grant. It is renewable, so students should apply for it every single year, but they're going to have to keep those hours and also being successful in college each semester. You can only receive one of the 3 state grants. Even if you qualify for all 3, you can only receive one. And obviously students would choose the one that is worth the most amount. This is the website where you can learn more about the HELP grant. You can see the classes that students have to be eligible for the HELP grant. And this is also where students would apply for the HELP grant and all other Mississippi financial aid. I'm now going to stop sharing with you and allow Cecilia Zahidi to give her perspective on helping counselors be successful in allowing students to receive the HELP grant.
Thank you, Brandy. That was great information. Hopefully, counselors, you knew all of that information. I've been at Gulfport High School for a long time now, and I'll say that I learned about the HELP grant from a student. Obviously, that's very upsetting, but it was one of my first years. The student came in and said he'd heard about it from a cousin who lived in the Jackson area. So I immediately got online, started calling around, seeing what this phenomenal thing was that my student was telling me about, having the entire 4 years of college paid for, the tuition piece of it. Then I started getting nervous, like, was I supposed to learn this when I was in college? No one told me about this. How do I learn everything I need to know? So that's when I just started calling the Mississippi Financial Aid Office all the time, asking a million questions, because we know what we deal with every day. Students come from all walks of life with all different kinds of stories. So I would say, oh, well, what about this situation? What about this? And so I would just call, and literally became best friends with the Mississippi Financial Aid Office over the past 15 years because they really do want to help our students get this money. So I learned about it from a student years and years ago, and then each year have become more passionate about the scholarship, because I would have received this scholarship. When I was in high school, my family would have hit the adjusted gross income. I'm the oldest of 4 children. And so sometimes people are like, why is this like the main thing you talk about? And it's because when I graduated college, I had tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of student loans to pay back. And had this program been around then, I wouldn't have started off behind in life and owing money before I could even start making money. So that's where my passion comes from that. Also, over the years, I've seen this scholarship literally change family trees, change life, because students can graduate, go out and get a job and not have all this money to pay back and worry and have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. So I'm very passionate about this scholarship because it's a game changer for students and families. As a parent of a high school student or even a middle school student, if we have parents watching, I really think the main thing you need to do at this point is go to the website that Brandy showed you, the Rise Up MS website, so you can know what's out there for your student, for your child, and then begin asking questions to your counselor. I feel like it's a counselor's responsibility, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but as a parent, you want to be informed and know if your child comes home their senior year and say, I dropped Spanish too, or I'm dropping chemistry. You need, as a parent, to say, wait, isn't that one of the classes we need for the HELP scholarship? You should have a 4-year plan that you meet with your counselor on, so you know what your child needs to graduate high school and get into college, and then to get the HELP scholarship if it's a financial situation where you would qualify for that. You need to know your child's GPA, because like Brandy showed you, MTAG, MESG, and HELP scholarship all have GPA requirements, and I would hate for you to think your child's getting this money and they don't in the end because you weren't aware of what their GPA was. All of these things are things that your counselor can answer for you. And that's why it's so important to know your child's counselor, know their email address, know their phone number, and stay in communication. That you can print out the HELP worksheet off of Rise Up's website, and Get to College has it listed as well. So you can say each year, mark off the classes that your child's taken and passed and keep up with the GPA. Those are things that you can help your child make informed decisions about schedule making. And you need to be present with the schedule making each year. And as a parent of a student, you need to know in 8th grade what the plan is each year for the high school. So those are the things that you can do as a parent to make sure your child gets everything that's available to them through the state. Also, as a parent, when your child's a senior, let's say they apply for schools out of the state and in-state, and they get into the schools. When you get the financial package at the end, so your child may want to go to school in Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and that, let's say they qualify for the HELP scholarship. It's really, that could be it would be tens and tens of thousands of dollars savings if your child stayed in state. Let's say that they're going to go to Alabama somewhere and they did offer them scholarships. That's great. You need to look at those scholarships and compare it to the HELP scholarship to make sure that you're making a good financial decision for your child. And your child would be a part of that conversation as well. Some of the schools outside of the state of Mississippi offer out-of-state tuition would be waived, let's say. The HELP, MTAG, and MESG scholarships are only for students who go to school in Mississippi. So just because a school that's outside of the state waives out-of-state tuition, acting like that student is an in-state student, maybe because they're close in proximity, they still would not receive the HELP scholarship if that school is outside of the state. So those are just some things as a parent that you should be aware of. Now, as counselors, the HELP scholarship and the requirements should be something that we have in the back of our heads that we don't even have to think about. We can look at a kid's schedule and know what they need and what's still needed to get the money and what we need to do. However, just knowing those things is not what's best for our students. I really feel that it's our job to be proactive in advertising this scholarship, making sure that every student that's on that campus, no matter where they live, what we think their family's income is, that they are aware of this scholarship. We do have the highest amount of HELP scholarship recipients at my school, but years ago, we probably were a school that had none because it wasn't something that we were aware of or something that we put our time in because we were spending our time on other things as we do as counselors. The main thing I did to change the game at my school was look at my guidance program. What were we spending our time on? And years ago, just like many of you are still doing, it was testing. It was the things that weren't necessarily student driven. So I had a problem years into this going to sleep at night. saying, that help scholarship, that thing, I think that was due. It's March. I think all that stuff was due. And I didn't even check on my students to see if they did it, because I was, maybe in state testing, or maybe I was doing something with scheduling or something that might be a little more clerical in nature. And so I can remember the moment exactly, and I can remember the student that came in my office to my door after graduation one time, and he said, okay, I graduated. We worked so hard. I took that algebra state test 10 times. We did tutoring. We did all of this stuff, and I walked across the stage. Now what? And I had no idea. I did not know what that child's next step was going to be, because I didn't put my time into that with that child. I knew his credits and I knew his state test scores, and that's what I put my focus on. And so I set him up for nothing except for to walk across the stage that night. And so it was that year and with that student that I said, never again will I feel like this. I will make sure that every child, no matter my alphabet or not, has applied for financial aid and state aid. Whether it's a child going into the military, a child going to LSU, 100%, they are still going to fill out the state aid application and the FAFSA, because we never know what happens. You get going into the military and maybe you're in a car accident, you break a leg, and now that's not an option anymore. Maybe you're going out of state and something changes. Well, there are deadlines with the Help Scholarship, MTAG, and MESG where you won't get the money. Doesn't matter how close you are with the state financial aid people. You can't call and say, you know what, this kid's changed his mind. It's April. He hasn't filled out anything. Can y'all help me? They can't, because they're rules that we have to abide by. So 100% of Gulfport High School students will fill out the FAFSA and fill out the HELP grant. And how, as counselors, do we make that happen? Well, over the past few years, the state has given us the tools that we need to make this happen. We run reports, and we start at the end of October running reports. I have a list of every high school senior at my school, and we run the FAFSA report and the state aid report. And we cross-reference who's filled this out, who's filled this out. And then we look at all of our appointments that we have set up. We have Get to College on our campus as often as they will come. October, November, December, January, February, March. They come at least 6 times, and I think one of the months they're going to come twice. So we'll cross-reference, and we'll say these 100 kids have not filled out the FAFSA or the state aid app. We call them in. We send them notes. We call home. I have everybody on my campus. I'll send 10 notes to our librarian and say, I've typed out what you need to say. Can you call home and say, Ms. Zahidi said, don't forget to make your FAFSA appointment. Ms. Zahidi said you filled out the FAFSA, but you didn't fill out the state aid app, so you must have filled it out at home, which is fine, but you still got to do the state aid application. So we use the tools that have been given to us, and we use them regularly and consistently, because that's how you're going to catch your students. So come the deadline for the state aid application, 2 weeks before that is, if you have not filled out the state aid application, you will be in the guidance office explaining it to me while we fill it out online at that moment. Because we're not going to let somebody leave us without having every opportunity for money, for admission, for anything like that. We're going to make sure that all of that is done. So when I started counseling, when I was a counselor, the first years of counseling, I was the test coordinator. So I was the test coordinator for all the state tests. I also had 400 plus students. I had students who left and went to a vocational counselor because they chose to take a CTE class. Then the next year, maybe they didn't take the class, they got shifted back to me. I didn't feel like I knew those students like I should, so I looked at our guidance program holistically, knowing that we weren't doing what we could. We were working long hours, late hours, unpaid hours, all the time, taking things home. It's not like we weren't working. We were working, but we weren't working what I feel like what was best for our students. So I looked at our program as a whole. And I'll be glad to, any counselor in the state that wants to email me or call or talk about it, I can help you. But we looked at the number of counselors we had and how we could divide our students up to build the best relationships that we could, so they wouldn't change in and out of counselors with each school year, that they wouldn't change in and out of counselors if they chose to take a CTE class or not. They would have me at the end of their 8th grade year until they walked across that stage. So there was no question, does this child qualify or not? I don't really know him. I just got him his senior year. You should, as a counselor, know a child's story. And if you have them the whole high school career, I feel like the main reason that we are very successful with the HELP Scholarship is that we build relationships. I know with all the jobs that we have as counselors, sometimes having time just to sit and talk to a student is very hard. So that's when you look at it holistically and try to figure out what's most important. How can we divide this up? And instead of going to your principal and saying, this state testing, just, I'm not feeling it. I have a kid crying in my office and I got to go count tests, or don't count anymore. I got to go print all their tickets out online. The times have changed with what the specific roles are. But when I went to my principal to talk about what we could do as a counseling staff, I went with a plan. I had complained for years and nobody did anything. So I went with a plan. I looked at who we had. I looked at all the resources. I looked at extra people. I looked at secretaries. I looked at teachers' assistants, social workers, anybody in the high school and in our district really that could help this guidance program that I wanted to create so we could know our students better and best help them get to the next place. I went to my principal with that. And I said, if you can get testing off of my plate, I promise you we will not have as many students drop out. I promise you my scholarship total will go up. I promise you we will have more students apply and be admitted to college. I promise you that I think we'll have fewer fights. I think that we'll have less discipline. I think we'll have fewer skips. Our attendance rate will be better. All of these things, if you put the counselors in the best place for students, I think that it's going to make this place a better place. And sure enough, they let some things happen. Our principal and superintendent took some risks and did things that were outside of the box to let us be counselors. And everything got better. And it continues to get better because each year last year we didn't probably have the highest help percentage. But this year, it is our goal that 100% of students fill out the FAFSA and apply for state aid. And that's our goal, and that's what we will do. And we got really close last year. But looking at your guidance program and figuring out what things to take away, not so you can just sit there and nobody in guidance is sitting there. I promise we all know that. You're probably not even eating lunch. But where you're working smarter, maybe not longer, maybe not into the night counting and changing schedules and balancing classes, but that you're working smarter, and when you're at school, you're effective and you're making change. When we have students in the 8th grade, the high school counselors go there, and that's where we begin our relationship. And we tell our students in the 8th grade about the HELP Scholarship. When we're doing their 9th grade schedule, we tell them about the HELP Scholarship. Every summer, our 8th grade parents, 9th grade parents, 10th grade parents, and 11th grade parents come onto our campus with a specific 20-minute appointment time. We do that 8th grade through 11th grade. We typically do it in the summer, but we've started doing the 9th graders during the spring semester. And we meet with the students, and then we invite their parents up. We talk to them about their child's schedule, about the 4-year plan, and about the HELP Scholarship and things like that, just so that it's culture. I would promise, I don't think that there would be an 11th grade or 12th grade student that when you said, do you qualify for the HELP grant or HELP Scholarship, they would know, because we have drilled it into them so much. So those meetings are very important, letting the students and parents know what is available. And what I had to do to make that happen was I had to go to my superintendent and say, this is what I want to do. We want to meet with all these people, but my contract days, I can't make it happen logistically. Can you extend our contracts? And at that time, I think he couldn't. So we did something to make it work, and we maybe shortened the appointment times. The next year, we got a few days added, and parents that didn't show up, we went to their homes. We went to their work. We called them to say, you missed your appointment. Is there any way you could come back up so we could talk to you about your child's schedule for next year and their 4-year plan and scholarships, things like that. It only took a few years before we almost have perfect attendance on all the parent meetings, because they realize these counselors hold the information for financial aid, for scholarships, for my child's future. So it is important. And I think that they see the importance of it when they come to that first 8th grade meeting. They don't want to miss it again. This is 20 minutes of somebody telling me what my child qualifies for or could qualify for. As counselors, we all are very confidential by nature. We know that we don't repeat things. Sometimes when you're meeting with parents, it's odd to say, and how much money do you make a year? That's a weird question, and that's not how you should present it. You want to get to know them. And in your summer meetings, in talking to the students during the school year, in phone calls home, where do you work? Who do you live with? Do you live with your birth parents? Because really all of this is based on your birth parents. So if you've lived with a relative your whole life, the counselor needs to know that, because there are things that we have to do to explain to financial aid that they've never lived with a birth parent. But those are things that come with time, with years, with relationship building. So when you're in the 10th grade and you've met with the parent twice already and you're at your 3rd meeting, it's not going to be an odd thing to say, so where are you working? Are you still working at this XYZ? Is your income level still about the same? And the reason why I want to tell you this is because this is the income level for the HELP scholarship. Do you think that you would qualify for that? And a lot of times if I feel like a parent is hesitant to discuss these things with me, I tell them my story. I tell them I would have qualified for this money, and by looking at me sitting in AP English 11 at Gulfport High School in 1990, you wouldn't have known that. My counselor would have had no idea that I qualified for this money because I didn't look like I did. I was in a class where probably 100% of the students went to college. Well, when I was in high school, my parents had not graduated from college. So and I don't know that anyone knew that about me. So telling your story to your families helps. And when they are vulnerable and tell you what their story is or what their financial information is, then you be the keeper of that secret, or you be the keeper of that information, and that's what we do. We don't run next door and say, they live in that great house, but did you know that, her dad has not worked in 2 years? But that isn't what we do. But the parents, if they don't trust you and they haven't met with you 4 times already, they're not just going to come in and spill all the beans on their finances. So you want to build that trust, and you want to earn that trust, and you need to respect that trust when these families come in and give us that information. So the meetings every summer, spring and summer, that we have with our students are huge. At the end of 11th grade year, I make all of our students fill out a sheet. Who do you live with? What do they do? Who lives in the household with you? It's like the HELP worksheet, family worksheet, but I've made it my own, where they kind of have to write about it and tell me all the specifics going on at that time. And they know if there's any changes. My parents got divorced. My dad lost his job. They know to come and let the counselor know that. So going into senior year, every counselor at my school, we have a sheet with every senior's name on it, and real big in the top right corner, it says help, no help, keep checking. And we flip through that book every week. And we also have the ACT score on that sheet, and every time there's an updated ACT, we have it on there. So now, right, we're in December now, so we just a few weeks ago did the big push on our students with a 17, 18, or 19 on the ACT as a senior. We called all of them into our office and said, sit here on this laptop and register for the December ACT so we can get you to the 20. We do it if they have not used their free ACT fee waivers, because if they get free or reduced lunch, they have those. We make them use that at that time. And we, load their picture. We do everything and print their ticket and make sure they know. We'll do an announcement at my school today because the ACT's tomorrow. Students, don't forget your ID. Don't forget your calculator. Don't forget your pencils. Go to bed tonight. All those things to try to hit that 20. And as soon as those scores come in, I mean, if you could be in our office when those kids with the 18 hit the 20, they run in, it looks like Mardi Gras. They're running down, I got it, Miss Zahidi, I got the 20. Yeah, it is Mardi Gras. And that's about $30,000 probably that you just saved your family. So the ACT push that senior year, and you want to push it all the time, but now we're at the crucial time. What if a kid has a 19 and he didn't take the test tomorrow, or he forgot because nobody reminded him today? Those are the things we will send out text and tweets and whatever we can send out to remind them. And years ago, I might have even said, they've got to take responsibility for. They are 17 years old. I have to be reminded of things. So it's not babying them. They're teenagers. They're still children. They need to be reminded. And when you remind them that much, they know that you care about it. They know that you've taken ownership in what they have going on in their life, and that you care so much about it that you're making them register in front of you. If they don't have a ride to the test, I'm asking them that when they're registering, how are you going to get there? Do you know where it is? Who's going to pick you up? I'm not going to run a bus to take them, but I want them to start thinking about those things. And I'd be 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Oh, I don't have a ride. I can't go. So they know the importance. We also will do ACT workshops. I will make them sign up for the Get to College workshops if they're on that 17, 18, 19. But we'll also do some things on our campus for those students to, if their sub-score in math is what's not letting them get to the 20, we'll do just a drill to try to work on those skills. Even though they get it in their classes, we want to make sure that those are some things that we're aware of. We will look at their grades. When we go home for Christmas, they take final exams, we'll look. If there's one of the advanced electives that the student needs for the HELP scholarship, they're retaking it come January. And they say, no, I've decided I'm not going to, we're going to go for that. I'm going to call home. Johnny failed Spanish and he's not wanting to retake it, but he's got to pass this for the HELP scholarship. Oh, Johnny's taking it. Johnny is taking it. So you just, and really you don't even have to tell the parent why. You know about that scholarship. This is a class he needs. They are on your side because it's money that they're going to have to find or they're going to have to pay back. So just having that relationship, meeting with the parents every year so that it's nothing new. Those are the main things I feel that make us successful, besides having a really great guidance setup that we worked really, really hard to create so we could spend a lot of time with our students. The thing that in January, once you start making sure the students have finished up their financial aid, when they get the email saying counselors submit their GPAs, send in their ACT scores, go online and register them. All those things, we make sure that we set aside a few days in our calendar where we go and check every student. We pull them up through the portal and said, oh, you have not turned in your HELP worksheet for your family. Those things, we spend a lot of time, dedicated HELP scholarship time, where we sit there and click on every kid, call them down and make them finish their end of it. And yes, it is, some say that's just babying them. That's too much. They're getting the emails. But I just feel like it's our responsibility as counselors to let them know the importance of this, because they haven't had they haven't had student loans yet. They don't know the pain of writing that check every month or having that thing pulled out of your bank account every month. So we do. We need to show them, no, this is the most important thing right now for you. So I feel that that is how we've been really successful. It's constantly checking on every kid, especially every senior, building these relationships, knowing the parents, knowing the grandparents, knowing where they live. All these things help us best help our students. And I tell you, something that was surprising to me years ago, there were a few students I wrote off that, I flipped through their sheet and I knew where their house was and I knew what their mom drove. And I wasn't even going to mention this to them. But one time a parent came to me that had this scenario, I guess, or this lifestyle, and said, we really need help. I'm like, what kind of financial? We started talking, and it had been something they had hidden for a while. So getting to truly know these families and know your students where they can trust you with this information, you need to talk about the HELP scholarship to every student, no matter what you think their financial situation is, because there are a lot of students in the state of Mississippi who could get this free money, who, because we haven't had time to spend to really get to know them and their stories, they kind of missed the boat on it. So I'm very passionate, as you probably can tell, about this scholarship, because I think it's one of the best things the state of Mississippi is doing for our students that need this money. And I always tell my seniors, we have a big assembly at the beginning, and I tell them, tell them a story, tell them it's not like dirt broke poor. It is parents who are working. These income levels are not poverty levels. These are families who live and some of them even thrive. So just because you say, oh no, we're not needy, we probably won't qualify, you may. So everybody needs to know the dynamics and the requirements and the specifics of the scholarship to best help. One last thing on my end, I make my staff learn about it, we post about it, we talk about it, teachers come in and we talk about it. Johnny, who I talked to you about in Spanish, let's say, I will make sure that Miss Lee knows Johnny is a HELP scholarship student. I'm not telling you to pass him. I'm telling you, when it looks like he's not going to pass, you need to call me or his mom, because she needs to know, because this is a make it or break it class for him. So if he fails it, he fails it. But if he's about to fail it, we need to know, because this is a big thing. So the communication, not only with students and parents, but with teachers as well. So it's a buy-in for our whole school, a culture, a HELP culture at our school to know these kids need these classes, these kids need these ACT scores. And we as a school have embraced that. And I feel like that's why we're really successful with it.
Thank you, Cecilia. It's been great to hear your stories and how you have used that momentum to really make a difference at Gulfport for your students with the HELP grant. We actually have had two really good questions that I want to share with the panelists and the audience, so that you may have those questions as well. The first question is there an expiration date on the HELP grant? That's a very good question, basically meaning, can any student, an adult, possibly apply for the HELP grant? The HELP grant is for high school students. It actually has a 2-year expiration date. That means that students have a year after graduating from college graduate from high school to apply for it. So a student can apply for the HELP grant their senior year of high school. They can also apply for the HELP grant their freshman year of college. After that, it's not available to them. So that's another reason why it's so important. It's not something that you can backtrack and say, oh yeah, let me go apply for that. Once you've missed the deadline, unfortunately, you've missed the deadline. The other good question was about which Mississippi colleges can you use the HELP grant. It is full tuition and required fees at any public school in Mississippi. So that would be all of the community colleges in Mississippi and our 8 public schools in Mississippi. If the student is a HELP grant recipient and they choose to attend a private school in Mississippi, the state would pay the amount of tuition that it costs to go to the nearest public school to that private school. So, for example, if a student wanted to attend Millsaps, then the state would use Jackson State University's tuition level to pay to go to Millsaps. So those are 2 distinctions that are very important when you're counseling students and letting them know what their options are. So Cecilia, I just want to thank you myself for presenting with me. It's always a pleasure. I'm happy to do it with you again sometime. And now I'm going to turn it over to Malia to wrap things up.
Thank you, Brandy, and thank you, Cecilia. I'm sure you can see why at Get to College we talk about the Zahidi effect on getting students that HELP grant, which truly changes their lives. So thanks to you both. To our participants, if you've registered for the webinar, we will email you a recording and post it on our YouTube channel. And our YouTube is also where you can find video tutorials on how to download and use student data for HELP targeting, which Cecilia talked about using strategically. We will also send you a link to a brief online survey, so please fill that out and give us feedback so we can keep improving our webinars. Our spring webinar series will include sessions on selective college admissions, next steps after graduation, and Junior Jumpstart. Those are 3 different webinars we have planned. And you can find more details on that soon at gettocollege.org. That's also where you can sign up for our 2-way text messaging. And you'll receive through that occasional college planning and financial aid updates, and you can also message us questions at any time. So if you have any follow-up questions or want to get in touch with our presenters, you can email us at info@gettocollege.org. Thank you so much for joining us.